What is the best motorcycle independent workshop for you? Let's get into it.
RevelatorAlf.
Hello, welcome to RevelatorAlf. I hope you're all well. So this video is all about, yes, motorcycles in general, but Harley-Davidsons, I suppose, because that's what I ride, of course, the heroic Harley. And this video is all about, finding the best independent workshop for your work, whatever needs to be done on your bike. Which is the best? How do you get to know these places and all that kind of stuff? So I kind of want to give you my opinion on it and see if you agree. So for me, there are two types of independent workshops, independent mechanics, let's say, that you should kind of go for if you want to have somebody else do work on your bike. So first of all, there might be a much better option to go for a workshop that can work on multiple different types of motorcycles. They've got so much knowledge, but they've got broad knowledge, not necessarily specific knowledge, but broad knowledge. And especially if you're dealing with some older bikes, that might work a lot better for you. So that is something that I cannot discount the value of those kinds of mechanics or those kind of independent workshops, okay? However, if I wanted to go to an independent workshop, guess what? I want somebody who's an expert on that bike, the Harley-Davidson with an M8 engine. That's exactly who I want to be looking for. Now, I'm sure many of you might disagree with this, or many of you might agree with this. I really don't know actually which is the right way or the wrong way. All I can tell you is what my preference would be, or what I would lean towards. But if I was going to take my bike to an independent workshop, first of all, I want to know, do they have any expertise or experience of working on these bikes? First of all, what kind of access to information do they have about interrogating the electronics on it and all that kind of stuff, the ECM, everything like that. You know, what kind of links do they have with Harley-Davidson Motorcycle Company? What kind of experience have they had in the past? Have they worked for them before? All these things for me are a big issue, because if you're going to take your bike to an independent, in other words away from the dealership, then you've really got to be sure that you can trust that they can do the work for you. Now, it was different back in the day because there was less electronics, so you could take your bike virtually to anybody. However, many independent workshops now may not work on specific models or manufactured motorcycles because of the electronics involved. They may shy away from it, or they may specialize in a particular brand because that's where the market is. That's what they need to work on. So if I were to set up an independent workshop myself, let's say right now, I would specialize on Harley-Davidsons, and I would specialize on the M8 engines for Tourers and for Softails. Now, I know this actually takes me out of the market for Sportsters, Shovelheads, Panheads, whatever, Twin Cams, you know, whatever it is, Evos. It takes me out of that market, and I know that. But there are many other workshops that will do that work for you, and you know, there's no point in me starting up a workshop that's going to be competing with them. However, there are not many independent workshops that are specializing in the M8 engine. You see where I'm coming with this? So by specializing and producing a high level of work in a specialist area, let's say, all of a sudden, yes, it's a niche market, but you've got a very big market here with the M8s and the Tourers and the Softails. So you specialize in actually a big market that maybe other independents are not specializing in, if that makes any sense. However, if, let's say, you were to say to me, right, Alf, right now, you're not going to set up your own independent workshop, but in 5 years' time, you would, what would that workshop be? And it wouldn't necessarily be the M8s, although I would still lean towards that, hand on my heart, I've got to say. Do you know what it would be? All the bikes with the Revolution Max engine, because those are the bikes that are going to be sold in the next few years. And those are the ones that you're going to have to start getting your head around, and those are the ones that people will be buying in numbers. This is buying in numbers, then operating as more and more models come out, and there will be fewer and fewer independent workshops that will have the expertise to deal with that bike. So if I'm looking for anybody to work on my bike, whatever bike it is, doesn't have to be Harley Davidson or whatever, I would first of all look at what work needs to be done to it. Then I would say, right, okay, is it engine work, is it electronics work, that kind of thing? Well, it may need a specialist who's got prior experience with that. If it's just, say, peripheral stuff, let's say suspension work, or a front forks, or a frame issue, or an exhaust, the seating, whatever it is, a general lighting issue, then actually, you could take that anywhere and just assess whether they could do the work or not, and whether they've worked on these kinds of bikes or not. That kind of stuff is relatively easy for any independent workshop to do. But when it comes to the engine, the internals, when it comes to electronics and fault finding and diagnosing and tuning and all that kind of stuff, then you really need to look at where you're taking that bike and what kind of expertise they have on that bike, but also performing particular tasks on that bike. So let's just say you want to have a tune on your bike, a specific tune. So you're going to take your bike to Harley Davidson, right? Harley Davidson dealership, and they say, oh yeah, we're going to have, I want my bike stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, all that kind of stuff. And I also want it dyno tuned as well. Now, it really depends on the dealership. Maybe they've got their own dyno in the dealership workshop, so they can do it there and then. And we've seen some of those dealerships have got that. Some dealerships don't. They don't have their own dyno, so that what they do, they will take your motorcycle and ship it out to a local dyno tuner, and then they will charge you for the privilege of that. Now, what you could have done, of course, was just take your bike directly to the tuner in the first place and not go via the dealership, but you may not be aware of that situation, of course. So if I'm looking for somebody to work on a bike, I'll be looking for a specialist, and certainly somebody who knows a lot more than me, or a lot more than any other workshop in the area. I'd be looking for somebody who is an expert in their field, who's got tons and tons of experience. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be an old guy, let's say. They're just somebody who's worked extensively on this particular bike. And that's why I think sometimes the specialists, those that focus on a particular model, are the ones that you really need to go for, really need to seek out. Yes, they could be expensive. Yes, I hold my hand up to that. They really could be expensive, but I think sometimes if you're really not sure, and let's say a dealership in your area has closed down, which will open up the opportunity for independent workshops to start up, especially if they're ex Harley Davidson dealership employees, they're going to go it alone. Actually, tapping into those guys, that's actually a pretty good way of doing it, because you have less of the hassle of those workshops having to deal with the Harley Davidson regime, as it were, the motorcycle company, and they can just work independently and do their thing, but also still provide you with all that experience and all that knowledge that they have about this particular machine or this particular engine that you want fixed. So for me, that would be the best independent workshop, somebody who is specializing in a particular vehicle. Now, I know this is not always possible, and I know, especially depending on what age of bike you've got, is it a bike that was sold in many numbers and all that kind of stuff, because let's face it, if you're going to set yourself up as an independent workshop, you need to get the work in. So if right now I want to set up myself as a workshop for Revolution Max engines, well, maybe not many have been sold, and everybody's under warranty still, so they're going to go to the dealership. They're not going to come to an independent workshop. Do you know what I mean? So it would be a bad business model to do that. M8s, however, that's a good business model. Sportsters, yes, good business model, but so much competition. And that's where I would look at it from. Yes, if I'm setting up a business, I would set up for something that I can be specialized in, however, with potentially a big customer base to keep me in business, let's say, and bringing me work. Or, you know, yes, I could go into something broad but specialize in a particular model, but acknowledge that I have to do all the other types of bikes just to keep myself in business. But I am a specialist in a very niche motorcycle that hardly any numbers have ever been sold, really. And it's that kind of dynamic. But as long as you're finding a specialist who really knows their stuff about your motorcycle, about the engine or whatever it is, about the history of it, then I think you're onto a winner. And that's somebody who I would certainly choose as well. Anyway, let us know your thoughts on this. Let us know what you would choose and who you would be looking for, and what you look for in an independent mechanical workshop as well. You know, what traits should they have, and what qualities should they have, what experience should they have, all in the comments below. But don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell, like and share. Check out the website revelatoralf.com, and I'll catch you again. Ta-da!